Hello, my name is Levi Beckman with UpArt Games, and today we're going to be discovering Revengineers, the original reverse engineering party dice game. The game is simple. You're trying to guess what's on the card. If you can guess what's on the card, you get the card, and the player at the end of the game with the most cards wins. This party game is played in more than one way, but the basic function of the game is everyone takes it in turn to be something like a computer virus. And that program is determined by cards, and that program basically gets inputs in the form of dice rolls and gives an output. And then everyone is trying to race against each other to figure out what's on the card. And so they will roll the dice, they will wait for an output from the computer program player, and then they'll try and figure out what's on the card. And when they have a good guess, they'll say debug, play will stop. They'll turn in a debug token, and they'll make a guess. And if the guess is close enough, then they get the cards, and the next player becomes the program virus. Having said that, there's more than one way to play. You can play turn-based. So, for instance, if you're in a place where you're playing with young kids, you might want to actually let them each take turns. So they'll roll the dice, and then they might make a guess, such as, is it red plus green? And then the computer, the program player will be like, nope, that's not it, next turn, and you keep going until someone gets it right and then they get the card. So Revengineers are computer programming engineers that are trying to reverse engineer a virus, and that virus has been given to us by Louis Longbottom, or otherwise known as Spanx the Clown, and he is the leader of the notorious cybercrime syndicate known as the Circuit Clowns, and they are wreaking havoc on our infrastructure with their computer hacking programs. And so Revengineers are trying to figure that out and trace it back, reverse engineer the virus and trace it back to their hideout, and then they're going to send the SWAT team in to get them. So the game is played around a table, and everyone takes it in turn to be the computer virus. And what they do is they figure out how strong of a computer virus is, what kind of a threat is, whether it's a 1 card or 2 card or 3 card computer virus. Then they draw the right cards and they become the computer virus, and everyone else starts a race to try and reverse engineer that computer virus. And how they do that is they roll the dice as inputs to the computer virus. The virus looks at it, does its calculation, and gives an output. Now, the output is just usually a number, right? In this case, if this were 1 card that represented the computer virus, add the total on the yellow dice roll plus the total on the blue dice roll. I would look at this and I would see it's 4 plus no blue dice, so 0. So I'd say 4. And then that would give them some kind of information that says, I wonder what the possibilities would be. Then the next player would roll some more dice, and in this case, I'd say execute, and I'd look at that and I'd say 5, because 1 plus 4 is 5. And so that's how play continues until someone has a guess, and then they say debug, they give the virus player a debug token, they give their answer, and I think it's the total on the orange dice plus the total on the blue dice, and no, that's not it. You keep going until someone gets it right. See the total on the yellow dice plus the total on the blue dice. Great. They get the card, the player at the end of the game with the most cards wins. Now, programs can have a degree of complexity, and that degree of complexity is the number of cards that they have. Now, programs can be simple or they can be complex, and so 1 card might be add the total on the yellow plus the total on blue. 2 cards might be if there are any translucent dice, then add the total on the yellow plus the total on the blue. Otherwise, it'll say error. 3 cards might be add the total, if there are any translucent dice, then add the total on the yellow dice plus the total on the blue dice. Otherwise, subtract the total on the orange dice from the total on the black dice. It becomes easier the more you play it. In the beginning, I would suggest playing just level 1 threats until you get the hang of it. Revengineers is played between 3 and 10 players, ages 8 and above, and the game is played thusly. Thusly, that's a weird word. So everyone that is playing takes it in turn to be the program virus, and what they do is they'll roll a threat level dice to determine whether it's going to be 1, 2, or 3 cards, and once they decide that, they will draw the appropriate 3 cards according to the virus player card, and then they will become the computer program for that turn. And then once they say go, everyone starts to try and figure out what's on that. And either through taking turns, rolling a dice and making a guess, or in a melee free-for-all style where everyone is rolling and the computer program is just giving out the outputs from the inputs. And the inputs are dice rolls. So in this case, let's pretend that my computer program is one card. In this case, add the total on the yellow dice roll plus the total on the blue dice roll. What I'm looking for is what was rolled and what's the number on those dice. So someone rolls this and they say execute. I look at that and I say 2 plus 1, 1. I say 3, and that's the output. Someone else rolls and they say execute, and I look here and I say, okay, 4 plus 2 plus 1, that's 7. So I say 7. So I'm constantly giving the output as the virus player, and everyone is trying to figure out, to super sleuth, what is the actual program. And as soon as they have an answer, they say debug, and they hand the virus player one of these debug tokens and they give a guess. If that guess is close enough according to the virus player's mind, then they can say yes, good job, and they get the card, or cards as it may be. And then the next player becomes the virus, roll the threat level dice and determine how many cards they're going to drop. That's basically how it's played, and you keep going until someone reaches either some determined number of cards, like 7, or until you guys decide you want to quit and you've been playing for 2 hours because it's so much fun. And, all right, who's got the most cards? You know, let's go over the different components of our game. First off, when you open the box, you'll find that there is this beautiful brick of acrylic dice. Every color of the rainbow, including blackout dice and rainbow dice. And you'll find that these are very important because the cards, they actually reference the different kinds of dice that exist. Either the opacity or the color of the dice, or perhaps the color of the pips, play an important role in the different cards that are determining the formula that represents your program that you are. And so we're really proud of this, and it is gorgeous. Actually, I love it every time I look at it. Next, you'll find that there's 2 different kinds of cards: if cards and then do cards. In a simple sort of if-then conditional statement, you have if some condition exists, then do something, otherwise do something else. And so that's how these cards are played out. And you'll see that on the virus player card that comes with it, that gives you instructions that depending upon which threat level, 1, 2, or 3, you have those 3 conditions. If some condition exists, then do this, otherwise do this. And you'll see that the if cards state if some condition exists, if there are any translucent dice rolled, right? Then do something, add the total on the yellow dice roll plus the total on the blue dice roll. Otherwise, do something else. Subtract the total on the orange dice roll from the total on the black dice roll. Now, the other thing that you have is you have these debug tokens. Now, in the box, it comes with 20 debug tokens, which we find is more than enough. And generally speaking, you play with 2 debug tokens per person in a melee situation where everyone's playing all at once. And if you run out of debug tokens, then you don't get to guess anymore. And then if you're doing turn-based play, where someone rolls, maybe they have a timer, there's a couple of different ways to play, then they give a guess, and then either they succeed or they fail and they go to the next person. You can play it both ways. All right, having said that, those are the primary components of the game. Of course, you have the threat level dice, which determine whether or not a game is, or a turn is going to be a 1-card, a 2-card, or a 3-card program, which increases in its complexity as you add more cards. And depending on whether you want an easy game, a medium game, or an insane game, you might roll the blue, yellow, or red threat level dice. Having said that, those are the main components of the game. So I hope you enjoy that part of it. But like I said, as you play, your brain creates a mechanism or a program. So the thing that I find very intriguing about this game is that as you solve problems of unknown variables, your brain writes something like a computer program in your head about how to solve problems. And at first, it's a pretty basic, it's a rudimentary program. It's not particularly sophisticated. But as you play more and more, your brain makes a more and more sophisticated program, and even way more efficient program. And so 1 card starts to become pretty easy. You know, I can figure that out. Gotcha. And so I need a little more complexity, such as a condition. If some condition exists, then do this. Then I have to isolate the condition, figure it out, and my brain actually starts to write a program in its head for how to do that, how to isolate unknown variables and then solve for them, which is amazing to me. And then thirdly, what if you add another condition? Well, that's just a greater degree of complexity that your brain starts to crave the more you play this. We have found that kids as young as 8 years old love to engage, particularly when you focus on just the addition and subtraction cards. There's multiplication, there's perspective, there's a couple of difficulty in the do cards which you can pull out as you see fit, depending upon the age group that you're playing with, of course. But really, we find that kids of all ages have a blast with this, and adults as well. I play this with my friends. I play this with my mom and dad, and they're older than I am. Thank you very much for joining me. Like I said, my name is Levi Beckman with Upart Games, and this is Revengineers, the original reverse engineering party dice game. Hope you have a blast playing it. Take care. So there you go. Revengineers, the original reverse engineering party dice game.